Hello guys, welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is another message that I want to share with you guys. The message reads like this: in the deepest seas and the darkest forest, that is where all the darkest rituals are performed. I have seen these rituals with my very own eyes. This is my story in detail. My grandmother is nicknamed the witch after her scandalous activities in the community. Many fear to socialize with us, and getting married in my village, it is utterly impossible. There was a time when my grandmother once loaned this other family some money when they wanted to send their daughter to further her studies. The money was supposed to be paid with interest of 25%. This was a mutual agreement of the two partners, but things started turning sideways when the family was no longer paying back. My grandmother was patient with them for some time, but they gave on silly excuses to my grandmother. My grandmother decided to pay them a visit one day, and they didn't get along very well. Then that day, when my grandmother went to their house, they started complaining, saying that the interest was just too high, and my grandmother wanted to make a fortune out of them. But my grandmother asked this family very kindly, saying that you and I, we had an agreement, and you swore to me that you are going to give me this, my money. But that family started complaining, and they went to the village head to report the threat, because my grandmother had said that surely one of you is going to die in this family if you don't give me my money. So that family then went to the village head to report the threat that my grandmother had made. A meeting was then held, and all the decisions were against my grandmother, because loaning money to people was illegal, and because my grandmother had clearly threatened the life of one of that family member. My grandmother straight up told them that they should keep the money, but one day they will wish to bring it back, but she won't take it. They even threatened to arrest my grandmother, but my grandmother said, try it if you want to get me arrested. When my grandmother told the village head that he had to call the police, everyone just kept quiet because the whole village was afraid of my grandmother. Then she called me and she said that let us go back home and wait for the police officer that they are going to send to come and arrest me. But no police officer ever came, because I knew that the police officers that stayed around our village, they were afraid of our grandmother. That night it was cold and it was so dark, as if an evil being had surrounded our compound. This evil being kept on speaking. We could hear it, but we were afraid. Then my grandmother asked me to accompany her outside. I was so afraid because I heard that outside there was a being. It seemed as if it was a giant, because from the footsteps you could hear that thing that was outside, it was quite a big thing, like a giant. But we went outside because we knew that my grandmother, if she tells you to do something and if you don't do it, you will be in trouble. When we went outside, that being led me and my grandmother to an abandoned forest known to be possessed by all kinds of demons. I was scared, but since I was working with grandmother, I just told myself that it was going to be for the betterment of our family, because also I was afraid that if ever Granny is going to get arrested, who was going to take care of us? When we arrived there, we could clearly hear voices. She told me not to utter any word. We heard voices of people crying and footsteps, people walking behind our back, but when you will turn around, we couldn't see anyone. When I looked at Granny, she wasn't afraid at all. Actually, she would speak to trees. She would speak to beings that I couldn't see or hear. She told me that these were the spirits of people who were wronged but couldn't exact revenge. So these spirits, if you offer them some sacrifices, they will help you to exact the revenge that you want in their own way. When my grandmother told me that all along she was busy speaking with the spirits of these people who died and who were wronged but could not exact their revenge, I knew and I understood exactly what she implied on. My grandmother then knelt down, and I did so as well. A strange human-like creature appeared in front of us. This creature, it had no clothes, it had no body shape whatsoever, but we could only see that this seemed to be like a human being when it spoke. As that creature spoke with my grandmother, it said, "Woman, I am giving you this potion. Just say whatever that you want to happen to that family, and it shall be so. Your wish shall be done." That creature then handed my grandmother a potion that was tied in sort of like a red and a black cloth. He told us to rise up on our feet and to go and never look back. When we arrived home, my grandmother then opened that potion and she said she wanted their house to be struck by lightning. Then it started raining. It rained so hard on that night. The next morning, we heard that that family's house had been struck by lightning. Soon after we heard that news, the village head came to our house to put the blame of their death on my grandmother, but my grandmother clearly denied it. People started throwing stones at us and say that we should immediately leave the village. My grandmother opened the potion and made the village head to go mad. He started to bark like a dog, and it was a warning to anyone who will try to mess with our family. So me and my younger sister, we just grew and we were like the best of friends, because in the village there was no one who would want to be friends with us. Even at school, no one would want to sit next to you. Even when the time comes whereby you have to do classwork together, people will just separate themselves from you. That is how me and my younger sister grew up. Not even a single day when a boy tried to approach me, especially when that family that was owing my grandmother some money, when their house was struck by lightning, there was no one that would even want to approach me. I just grew up like that. At first, I just thought that maybe it was people in the village. Then I moved to the city, but those problems that I was facing in the village then followed me again to the city. I dated this man and he was hit by a car. Then I dated another guy. That guy also died. I clearly saw that this which was happening to me was not bad luck, but I tried one more time. When I dated this third guy, that guy, we just dated for less than a month. Then that guy strangely just died. That is when I saw that there was something wrong with me, and the same problem that I am facing, that is the same problem that my little sister is facing. And for us to ask our grandmother, we are afraid. My brother, all that I am asking for right now is some prayers, because if I try to go somewhere to look for help, I dream of my grandmother. She will be walking with me, but the strange thing is that me and my grandmother, both of us, we will be naked. My brother, please pray for me. Dear listeners, right there was a message that I received from Anonymous. Then she asked me to hide the country that she is currently staying right now. Please let us try to talk about this issue in the comment section.